Hello, guys, welcome to all of you on our YouTube channel or website. Don't waste your time to check your steno script one by one for each error. Use our website www.stenoforall.com with auto checking facility or much more. All candidates are ready to write at a speed of 140 words per minute. This is our 11th dictation. All are ready to write? 7 years after launching his government's Mercu program, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the second phase of Swachh Bharat Mission Urban and the Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation with a fresh promise to make India's cities clean. For all the attention it has received, the goal of scientific waste management and full sanitation that Mahatma Gandhi emphasized even a century ago remains largely aspirational today. And the recent lament of Principal Economic Advisor Sanjeev Sanyal on dirty, dysfunctional cities drives home the point that urban India, in his view, is unable to match cities in Vietnam that has a comparable per capita income, is a telling commentary on a lack of urban management capacities in spite of the Swachh Bharat program enjoying tremendous support. SBMU 2.0 with a rupees 1.41 lakh crore outlay aims to focus on a garbage free cities and urban grey and black water management in places not covered by Amrut. In its first phase, the mission had an outstanding balance of rupees 3,532 crore since the total allocation was rupees 14,622 crore while cumulative releases came to rupees 11,090 crore. The issue of capability and governance underscores the challenge of being able to process only about 1 lakh tons of solid waste per day against 1.4 lakh tons generated to transition to a circular economy that treats solid and liquid waste as a resource. Raising community involvement in resource recovery with the rules governing municipal plastic and electronic waste provide for calls for a partnership that gives a tangible incentive to households. The current model of issuing mega contracts to big corporations as opposed to decentralized community level operations, for instance, has left segregation of waste at source a non starter. In the absence of a scaling up of operations which can provide large scale employment and creation of matching facilities for material recovery, SBMU 2.0 cannot keep pace with the tide of waste in a growing economy. On sanitation, the impressive claim of exceeding the targets for household, community, and public toilets thus far obscures the reality that without water connections, many of them are unusable and in public places left in disrepute. State and municipal governments, which do the heavy lifting on waste and sanitation issues, should work to increase community ownership of the system. As things stand, it is a long road to open defecation free plus status for urban India, since that requires no recorded case of open defecation and for all public toilets to be maintained and ambition of achieving 100% tap water supply in about 4,700 urban local bodies and sewerage and septage in 500 Amrut cities depends crucially on making at least good public rental housing accessible to millions of people. The annual report Crime in India released by the National Crime Records Bureau in mid-September this year needs to be carefully parsed before gleaning comparisons. The reason is the significant variances in case registration across states and union territories, especially serious crimes pertaining to rape and violence against women. States UTs such as Tamil Nadu with 1800.8, Kerala 1568.4, and Delhi 1309.6 recorded the highest crime overall, but it is difficult not to see these numbers as a reflection of better reporting and police registration of cases in these states and the capital city respectively. On the other hand, while there was an 8.3% decline in registered cases of crimes against women in 2020, this number has to be assessed along with the fact that the year saw prolonged lockdowns during the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic. This period coincided with a high number of complaints of domestic violence. The number of complaints received by National Commission for Women registered a 10-year high as of June 2020. The seeming mismatch between the NCW and NCRB data must be studied and can only be explained by a lack of registration of cases in some states where crime reporting remains sluggish either due to a fear of doing so or a lackadaisical approach to such cases by law enforcement. On the other hand, the lockdown also led to an overall fall in crime related to theft, burglary, and dacoity. The COVID-19 related disruption also led to a greater registration of cases, overall largely due to a 21-fold increase in cases related to disobedience in the order duly promulgated by a public servant and over 4 times in cases involving violations of other state local laws. This is not surprising either. India had one of the most stringent lockdowns and law enforcement spared little in enforcing strictures on physical distancing. The question of registration does not apply to some types of cases such as murders which showed only a marginal increase of 1% compared to 2019. Worryingly, while there was a reduction in the registered number of economic offences, cyber crimes recorded an increase of 11.8%. The increase in cyber crimes is cause for concern as these requires sharper law enforcement as seen even in highly developed societies. While cases related to sedition declined from 93 in 2019 to 73 last year, Manipur and Assam led with 15 and 12 cases each. Sedition has increasingly been used as a weapon to stifle dissent and these trends needs to be reversed urgently. Nearly 74 years after his death, Gandhi remains the most widely known political leader of modern India. Gandhi's stature as a major historical figure was confirmed by his successful non-violent movement against British rule in India. Yet, what makes Gandhi so relevant and meaningful for our world is that his political legacy and his philosophical significance continue to inspire millions of people around the globe to fight against inequality, injustice, and historical wrongs. Accordingly, what distinguishes Gandhi from all politicians in today's world is not only his simplicity and honesty, which have become rare characteristics for many women who pretend to represent our wills and wishes around the globe, but also his belief in the moral growth of humanity. In a world such as ours, which suffers from an immaturity of politics and politicians, either in Afghanistan, Myanmar, Syria, etc., or in democracies such as the United States, Spain, Poland, India, etc., reading Gandhi as a lesson of political maturity is an ethical imperative. As such, and not strangely, Gandhi believed in no divorce between politics and ethics. For Gandhi, politics was essentially an ethical mode of conduct. He never pretended to be a teacher of truth. However, others took him to be a guru, and there is no doubt that his attempts to encourage people to experiment with the truth were both philosophical and pedagogical. Therefore, as a practitioner of empathetic humanism and a pluralist thinker, Gandhi was an exemplar of a lifelong process of listening and learning. He actually played the role of an exemplar in prescribing patience as a means to understand and approach the other. The dialogical nature of Gandhi's culture of patience finds its root in the idea of epistemic humility as a necessary methodology in approaching and understanding other cultures and religions. As such, the entire Gandhian thought in the realm of religion and politics revolves around this concept of epistemic humility. That is why Gandhi had a profoundly ethical view of religions. In other words, he recognized neither the infallible authority of prophetic text nor the sensitivity of religious traditions. At the same time, he was the foremost critic of the epistemological arrogance of modern rationality and its authoritarian thinking and imperialistic domination. It is on account of his overriding concern for the self respect of individuals and nations that Gandhi joined the two nations of truth and non-violence to that of the term Swaraj. Gandhi believed that all individuals, irrespective of their religion, race, and culture, had the right to self governance. Accordingly, what we can call the Gandhian movement of Swaraj was actually for him a constant experimentation with modes of cross cultural and interfaith understanding and dialogue. In other words, the capacity to engage constructively with conflicting values was an essential component of Gandhi's practical wisdom and empathetic pluralism. As a matter of fact, Swaraj as a space of self realization was where the ethical and the political joined in Gandhian political philosophy. For Gandhi, politics, like spirituality, was a space to examine and experience truth, which he considered not as a given process but as an effort to re evaluation and reformulation of reality.